We're talking orcas today, but not the kind you see doing tricks,
Right?
SeaWorld or anything. We're looking into some really weird behavior out in the wild. Specifically off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah, it's interesting. These orcas are actually
Oh, yeah.
physically interacting with boats.
What?
And not just like passing by or something, but like
No kidding.
making contact. We're talking about contact, and it seems like sailboats are their target of choice for some reason.
That's weird, because usually you
No.
think of orcas as like, the gentle giants.
Exactly.
Super smart social creatures.
Yeah.
Not exactly boat destroyers, right?
Right. And to add to the mystery,
Yeah.
the Iberian orca population is actually critically endangered.
Really?
So you'd think they'd have, bigger fish to fry than messing with sailboats.
Right. You'd think they'd be avoiding any extra trouble.
Exactly.
So just how much trouble are we talking about here? Like, how many boats have actually been hit?
Since around 2020, when this whole thing started, there have been reports of over 600 sailboats getting hit. And at least 5 have actually sunk.
5 sunken boats. That's...
Yeah, and even more recently, this past summer, 2024,
Yeah.
2 sailboats named the Albarin Cognac and the Champagne were sunk by orcas.
Okay, so this isn't just a few bumps here and there.
No, definitely not.
This is serious stuff.
What's really interesting here is
Yeah.
that these aren't just random collisions. There's actually a specific pattern to these encounters.
Okay.
They're almost exclusively targeting sailboats.
Huh?
And they're laser focused on the rudder.
The rudder. So they're not just like, ramming the side of the boat or something.
Right.
They're going straight for the part that controls the boat's movement.
Yeah, it's like they understand
Like they know exactly what they're doing.
exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a little unnerving.
It is. One couple was sailing their yacht, the Deo Juvante,
Okay.
across the Strait of Gibraltar. And they said it felt like a floating bulldozer hit them.
Oh, wow.
And get this, later they could actually hear an orca right outside their porthole.
No way.
Yeah, they were lucky though.
Yeah.
They escaped with minimal damage, but other boats in their convoy weren't so lucky.
Man, I can only imagine that feeling. You're out in the middle of the ocean and suddenly, bam, this massive creature just slams into your boat.
I know, it's terrifying.
So any ideas why they're doing this? I mean, is there like a leading theory or something?
Well, there are a few theories that researchers are exploring,
Yep.
but there's still a lot of debate.
Uh-huh.
One theory is the trauma response theory.
Trauma response. Okay. So.
Yeah, the idea is that maybe a founding orca,
Okay.
maybe one named White Gladys,
Okay.
had a really bad experience with a boat at some point.
Like a collision or something.
Yeah, maybe a collision or like got entangled in some fishing gear.
Oh, yeah?
And now this behavior,
Okay.
which was born out of fear or pain,
Mm-hmm.
is being copied by others in the pod.
So they're basically passing this fear down to the next generation.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And there is some evidence to support this theory.
Okay.
Researchers have observed scars on some Iberian orcas that are consistent with,
Oh, really?
encounters with boats or fishing nets.
Huh. Interesting.
But it doesn't fully explain why younger orcas who haven't had these direct negative encounters are also participating.
So the trauma response theory kind of explains some of it,
Right.
but it doesn't tell the whole story.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of the other theories? I mean, orcas are known to be playful.
Right.
Could this be some kind of like extreme game to them?
That's another theory, the playful curiosity theory.
Playful curiosity, okay.
Yeah, orcas are incredibly curious.
Yeah.
And they're very playful creatures. They investigate and they manipulate objects in their environment all the time.
Right. I've seen videos of them like playing with kelp and tossing seals around.
Exactly.
So maybe a rudder could
Yeah.
seem pretty tempting to a curious orca,
Especially a younger one.
especially a younger one.
Especially a younger one. Yeah. Juveniles are actually the ones most frequently observed
Oh, really?
participating in these attacks.
Mm.
And it's kind of like with most teenagers, right?
Yeah.
They're more adventurous. They're exploring boundaries. They're pushing the limits.
Makes sense.
So that could explain why they seem to be leading the charge in these boat encounters.
So we've got trauma and we've got play as potential explanations.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I mean, is it possible that this is like some sort of learned behavior, like a trend that's spreading through the pod?
That's actually another theory, the learned fad theory.
Learned fad.
Interesting. Have you ever heard of the salmon as hats trend from back in 1987?
Salmon hats. No, I don't think so. What was that?
Well, a group of orcas in the Pacific Northwest
Uh-huh.
started carrying around dead salmon on their heads.
On their heads, really?
Yeah. Nobody knows why.
That's hilarious.
But the behavior spread like wildfire throughout the pod.
Wow.
And then just as suddenly it disappeared a few months later.
So maybe this rudder attacking is a similar kind of fad.
It's possible. Orcas are incredibly social.
Yeah.
And they learn from each other. They copy behavior.
Right.
So this rudder attacking could be like a destructive, but ultimately temporary trend.
Okay, but why rudders specifically? I mean, that seems pretty targeted for just like a random trend.
That's true. And that's one thing that this theory doesn't fully explain.
So it's still a bit of a mystery then.
Yeah, I know.
We've got trauma play a fad. Are there any other ideas out there?
There is one more we should discuss.
Okay.
And it's a little bit more unsettling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Well, this one connects to those Orca Uprising memes you mentioned earlier.
Orca Uprising. Okay, that sounds a little dramatic, but I'm listening.
It has to do with the fact that this Iberian orca subpopulation is struggling.
Okay.
They're critically endangered.
Right.
And they're heavily reliant on a dwindling population of bluefin tuna.
So could they be associating all boats with fishing and, the depletion of their food?
That's the idea. If they're associating boats with fishing, and fishing with, the depletion of their primary food source, then disrupting those boats, even sailboats, could be a way to protect their survival.
Yeah.
It's less about revenge and more about taking desperate measures.
So it's not personal, it's just survival.
Exactly.
I can see how a dwindling food supply would make them, act a little more aggressively towards anything they perceive as a threat.
Definitely. And this leads to another theory
that
digs a little deeper into this idea of orcas as like intelligent problem solvers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One that raises even bigger questions about our own role in all of this.
This is all about survival. Is it possible that there's like a bigger picture here?
Yeah.
Something we're missing in our understanding of what's happening?
It's definitely possible. We were talking about the idea that, these orca interactions with sailboats could be more than just a random act of aggression or playful curiosity. What if this behavior is actually a deliberate strategy?
A strategy. Okay, you're saying these orcas could be like thinking this through, actually planning these encounters?
Well, we know orcas are incredibly intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
They have complex communication. They have intricate social structures.
Right.
And a capacity for cultural learning.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
It's not a stretch to think that they might be capable of adapting their behavior in response to changes in their environment, especially changes that, directly impact their survival.
Yeah, that makes sense. Their primary food source, the bluefin tuna, is declining because of overfishing. And we talked about how they might associate fishing boats with that decline.
Exactly.
But how does that connect to sailboats?
What if their understanding goes beyond just fishing boats?
Okay.
What if they've made the connection that all boats, even those that aren't involved in fishing, represent human presence?
Okay.
Human activity that disrupts their hunting grounds and their way of life.
So instead of targeting fishing boats, which could be dangerous, they've found a way to send a broader message by targeting sailboats.
It's possible.
They're saying, hey, your presence here is a problem regardless of what you're doing.
Exactly. And they're not just making noise or creating like a minor inconvenience.
Right.
They're disabling those boats, removing them from the equation.
At least temporarily.
At least temporarily.
It sounds like they're sending a very clear message.
Right.
And I gotta admit, it puts those Orca Uprising memes in a whole new light.
Yeah.
This isn't about revenge.
Right.
It's about a calculated response to what they perceive as a threat.
Exactly. We are encroaching on their territory. We're depleting their food supply.
Right.
We're polluting their waters.
I
mean, if this theory holds water,
it
means they're not just reacting to our presence, they're actively trying to manage it.
Okay, that's a little unsettling.
It is.
But also fascinating.
Yeah.
What if they decide to escalate, though? What if sailboats aren't enough?
That's a good question. And we don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
But it is a question we need to be asking.
Right.
And one that should inform our actions moving forward.
That brings up a really important point. What can we do?
Right.
I mean, if this is about orcas protecting their food source, how do we change our behavior to ensure their survival?
Well, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But this situation is definitely a wake-up call.
Okay.
We need to rethink our relationship with these animals, with the entire marine ecosystem.
Right.
We can't just keep taking from the ocean without, considering the consequences.
So what does that look like in practice? Like, what can we actually do to make a difference?
Well, first and foremost,
okay.
we need to support sustainable fishing practices.
Okay.
We can choose seafood that's caught or farmed responsibly.
Right.
And, vote for policies that protect marine habitats and regulate fishing quotas.
So basically ensuring there's enough food for the orcas could help reduce that perceived threat from humans.
Exactly. What else can we do?
We can all do our part to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics.
Yeah.
Pollution is a huge problem for marine life.
Right.
We can make conscious choices about the products we buy, how we dispose of waste, how we travel. Even small changes can make a difference.
And what about the research being done on these orcas and their behavior? Is there any way we can support those efforts?
Absolutely. Donating to organizations that are studying orca behavior and working to protect their habitats is a great way to contribute. Spreading the word about this issue is also important.
Yeah.
The more people understand what's happening, the more likely we are to find solutions that work for everyone.
It's interesting. We started this deep dive talking about orcas as like a threat, these mysterious, aggressive creatures.
Right.
But the more we learn,
the more it seems like we're the ones who need to change.
It's definitely a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of fearing them, we need to understand them.
Right.
Instead of trying to control them, we need to find ways to coexist peacefully.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is.
But I also feel a sense of hope.
Yeah.
Maybe we can learn something from these orcas about adaptability, problem solving, the importance of protecting our environment. What do you think?
I think orcas are incredible creatures.
Yeah.
They're intelligent, they're resilient, and they're deeply connected to their environment. If we want to share this planet with them, we need to start acting like it.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem.
I know.
But even small actions can have a ripple effect.
They can.
Every choice we make, every step we take towards a more sustainable way of life sends a message.
Good job.
It sends a message to the orcas, to the ocean, to ourselves, that we're not just here to we're here to learn to adapt and to find a better way forward.
Exactly.
Speaking of a better way forward, you mentioned earlier that there was one more aspect of this situation we need to discuss. Something about a philosophical detour and the nature of intelligence. That sounds pretty intriguing.
It is. What does it really mean to understand another species?
Yeah.
Especially one as complex as orcas.
Right.
Are we truly able to grasp their motivations?
It's a good question.
And this leads us to some intriguing questions about the very nature of intelligence and communication.
We've been talking about orcas as these intelligent problem solvers, maybe even trying to communicate something to us with these boat interactions.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, what does it really mean to understand another species?
That's a great question.
Especially one as complex as orcas.
It's a question that has fascinated scientists and philosophers for centuries.
Yeah.
How do we bridge the gap between human consciousness and the minds of other animals?
It's so easy to just project our own thoughts and feelings onto them.
Exactly.
We see a behavior and we just automatically assume we know what's behind it.
Right.
But what if their motivations are totally different from anything we can even imagine?
We tend to anthropomorphize.
Right.
We create narratives that fit our understanding of the world. But to truly understand another species, we need to acknowledge the limitations of our own senses and perceptions.
That's a good point. We rely so much on sight.
Right.
But orcas experience the world primarily through sound. They see with echolocation, and they communicate with these complex vocalizations. We're trying to understand a whole different language.
It is. Imagine trying to understand a symphony using only your sense of touch. You might feel the vibrations, but you'd miss the melody, the harmony, the emotional depth of the music.
Wow.
That's what it might be like trying to understand orcas through our limited human senses.
I never thought about it that way. It really highlights how much we might be missing when we try to interpret their behavior.
Right.
And it's not just about senses either, is it?
No, it's also about their brains.
Right.
The way they process information, the way they perceive time and space. Even if we could tap into their communication, their language, we might not have the cognitive tools to grasp the meaning behind it.
So is true understanding even possible? Are we just stuck with our limited perspective?
It might feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But I believe we can move beyond simply observing them as something other.
Okay.
We need to approach them as beings with their own unique ways of knowing and being in the world.
So more collaboration and less observation.
Exactly.
But how do we even begin to collaborate with a species that we can't directly communicate with?
Well, there are ways to create opportunities for meaningful interaction.
Okay.
For example, some researchers are using play as a way to bridge the communication gap.
Play.
Yeah, they introduce novel objects into their environments and observe how they interact with them, how they problem solve, how they learn and adapt.
So it's like we're trying to meet them halfway on their own terms.
Exactly.
Do you think this will help us understand the motivations behind the boat interactions?
It's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
We may never have a definitive answer,
Right.
but that doesn't mean we can't find ways to coexist. It means being open to the possibility that we're not the only intelligent species on this planet.
Maybe these orca encounters are an invitation to step outside our limited worldview and embrace a more expansive, interconnected understanding of life on Earth.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It is.
And one that could lead us toward a more harmonious future.
What should we do if we encounter orcas out in the wild?
I would say give them space.
Okay.
Observe respectfully, but don't approach or engage.
Right.
Remember, they are wild animals.
Yeah.
And we are visitors in their home.